Yo, YouTube, what's going on? In this video, I want to talk about the story of Samson and Delilah, and one, how it relates to the story of semen retention, how it relates to semen retention, and two, how it relates to faith in God. So certainly one of my favorite biblical stories. And just to give you a brief overview, Samson is known as the strongest character in the Bible, or one of the strongest characters in the Bible biblically. From a physical standpoint, he could defeat lions with his bare hands. His strength was known to be like 100 men or 1,000 men. A lot stronger than Goliath or whatever it was, yeah. So Samson was really that guy. But then he fell in love with the wrong woman. And he married her, and each night he would come home from his long day at work or his long day at battle, whatever he was doing, and she would pester him, what's the secret to your strength? What's the secret to your strength? And he continued to deceive her. Then eventually he told her the truth. He was like, look, the secret to my strength is in my hair. And she took advantage of that information. She cut his hair whilst he was sleeping, and he lost his strength, and then he was captured. So one thing, obviously, the Bible doesn't go into was that obviously he would be coming home from work or battle or war or whatever, and he would be having sex with his wife or having sex with Delilah. And he would most likely be releasing into her. He would come up home with all this pent-up energy and aggression and just release into her, ejaculating until she weakened him. And that's what the wrong woman can do for you. The wrong woman will weaken you, and that's what this story illustrates. Delilah weakened him so much until he was just like, you know what, forget it. Here's the secret to my strength. He gave up holding on to his deepest conviction, and he gave his seed to her. So, and a lot of these times, so that's why I tell people not to beat yourself up when you're practicing no-fap semen retention. Listen, men have always and will always struggle with lust. It's not a new thing. Men have always struggled with lust. And I just want to read something from my laptop here. It's from a book called KebraNagast, something along those lines. So, listen. For they mark, let me fast forward, and the beauty of their forms, so to destroy the wisdom of the foolish man. Listen, who was wiser than Solomon? Yet he was seduced by a woman. Who was more righteous than David? Yet he was seduced by a woman. Who was handsomer than Amnon? Yet he was seduced by Tamar, the daughter of David, his father. And Adam was the first creation of God, yet he was seduced by Eve, his wife. And throughout that seduction, death came for every created being. So understand that women have always seduced man. But this is a great story to remind us. Give not your strength unto a woman, Proverbs 31 verse 3. Give not your strength unto a woman, because that's exactly what Samson done. But people always like to end the story of that there, especially the Rasta man when you engage in discussion with him. He was like, the strength was in, with that overwise attitude, the strength was in his hair. Delilah cut it and he lost his strength. But if you continue, and that's a lot of things I dislike about scripture, people always just stop. They don't read to the end of the scripture. So if you continue down, he was captured, yes. And then eventually he prayed to God one last time, and it was his faith in God that restored his strength in that moment. So he was bald-headed, he was blinded. I believe they gouged out his eyes. He was blinded, he was bald-headed, and in that moment he showed his greater strength by realizing that the strength was not in his hair, the strength was in his faith in God, and by staying true and by staying righteous to the code of conduct that he was supposed to follow. Every single man in the Bible. So in that moment as well, in that particular moment, he destroyed some pillars, and he killed more Philistines than he ever did when he was alive. And that's the greatest part of the story for me. A lot of people don't talk about that part of the story, but the strength wasn't in his head. The strength was with his faith in God. So that's what I want to remind you today. That's the message in terms of that. So Samson, obviously, he fell to a woman. Just like I was reading in that same book I mentioned earlier, Solomon had 1,000 wives, 700 concubines. These men, and Solomon is the author of Proverbs. He's the author of Ecclesiastes. He's the author of Songs of Solomon. And various other books in different translations as well. And he wrote all these books on wisdom, stay away from the strange women. And it's like, dude, you couldn't even control lust. None of these men could control lust. So it puts you at a level, when you can master semen retention, you can really say no. I can promise you, none of those men could go a year without sex. Samson was fucking around all over the place, having sex with prostitutes. So was all of these kings. David was seduced by Bathsheba, another man's wife. And so, these men could not control lust. So, in a way, if you can master semen retention, you put yourself at a level greater than biblical characters. As much as they preached all this wisdom and things like that, and sometimes I have a hard time reading Solomon's words. It's like, dude, you had 1,000, you really couldn't control yourself, bro. A lot of the time, the wealth, and it just leads to vanity and ego. So Yeah, I'd certainly have a hard time with some of these biblical characters, understand some of these biblical characters. And it's not just in this holy book. I would talk about the Quran because I read the Quran on a daily basis as well, but it's the same thing throughout most religious texts. But yeah, that's the message today. I hope I imparted something new for you.